You're hearing right now about $2,000 dividend checks is spreading fast. And for once, it's not just internet noise. Over the last few hours, President Trump publicly addressed something that millions of Americans have been quietly hoping for, but didn't expect to hear out loud. $2,000 dividend-style payments. Not loans, not tax credits you wait a year for, actual checks or deposits. And the moment those words hit the air, everything changed. Phones lit up, Facebook groups exploded, YouTube thumbnails went wild, and seniors, retirees, disabled Americans, and working families all started asking the same question. Is this real? And if it is, where do I fall? Now, before you get too excited, I need you to stay right here with me because this is exactly where people get confused, misled, or disappointed. This does not mean checks are going out tomorrow. It does not mean everyone gets paid at the same time. And it does not mean the government has already flipped the switch. But, and this part matters, it also does not mean this is fake, dead, or meaningless. What Trump addressed was very specific, and the way it was framed tells us a lot about what could happen next. Here's why this moment feels different. In the past, when stimulus talk surfaced, it usually came from leaks, rumors, or half-statements buried in interviews. This time, the language was intentional, the word dividend was intentional, and the timing was intentional. A dividend isn't charity. It's not framed as relief. It's framed as something you're owed. That framing alone changes the political and logistical conversation. Now, I want you to think back for a moment. Every time stimulus money went out in the past, what was the biggest problem? Not approval, not even funding. It was who got paid first and who waited weeks or months wondering if they were forgotten. And that's exactly why payment order is the real story here. Because if anything moves forward, even slowly, the order determines who feels relief first and who feels left behind. This is where people make a dangerous mistake. They hear $2,000 checks and they stop listening. They assume it's automatic. They assume it's universal. They assume it's fast. But the truth is much more complicated and much more important. If you're on Social Security, if you receive SSI or SSDI, if you're retired and living on a fixed income, if you rely on direct deposit, if you don't file taxes regularly, your position in line matters, and most people have no idea where they actually stand. Now, let me be very clear about something. This is not a confirmed stimulus program. There is no official payment date, no treasury schedule, no SSA bulletin yet. But what happened here is the first domino. Public acknowledgement changes pressure. Pressure changes negotiations, and negotiations change timelines. What happens next will surprise a lot of people, especially those who assume this will look like past stimulus rounds. Because this is being discussed differently. Instead of relief, you're hearing dividend. Instead of emergency, you're hearing distribution. Instead of pandemic, you're hearing economic participation. Those words are not accidental, and that's why you need to understand what's actually being signaled without getting emotionally whiplashed by clickbait. Right now, there are three groups reacting very differently. First, people who assume this is fake and tune it out completely. Second, people who assume money is coming fast and start counting it early. And third, the smartest group, people who slow down and ask, if this happens, how does it actually roll out? That's the question we're answering today, because the rollout, not the headline, determines your outcome. Here's something almost no one is explaining. Even talk of payments can trigger system preparation. Agencies don't wait for final approval to start mapping scenarios. They quietly review databases. They quietly look at payment rails. They quietly assess risk points. That doesn't mean checks are guaranteed, but it does mean the conversation has consequences. And when Trump speaks publicly about a number this specific, $2,000, it narrows the options. It tells agencies and lawmakers exactly what expectations are being set. Now, here's the part you really need to hear. Even if money is approved later, weeks or months from now, the first wave almost always goes to people who are easiest to verify and fastest to pay. That's not about fairness. That's about systems. And those systems favor certain groups, which is why some people celebrate early while others wait and worry. So, in this video, I'm going to walk you through what this dividend check language really means, why payment order matters more than the amount, who historically gets paid first and why, what mistakes cause delays, and what you should quietly prepare for right now without panicking. But before we go any further, I need to say this clearly. No one is losing their current Social Security. No one's SSI or SSDI is being cut because of this conversation. No existing benefits are being replaced or threatened. This is additive talk, not subtractive. Still, misinformation spreads fastest in moments like this. Scammers love moments like this. Fake payment trackers pop up. Fake emails go out. Fake confirmation messages circulate. If you don't understand the process, you become vulnerable. That's why staying calm and informed is your biggest advantage. Now, let's talk about why this announcement didn't come with dates. That's intentional too. Dates lock agencies in, dates create legal exposure, dates raise expectations. So instead, what you're seeing is a signal, not a schedule. And signals are how governments test reaction before moving forward. If reaction is strong, organized, and politically useful, momentum builds. If reaction is chaotic or confused, plans slow down. That's why clarity right now matters more than excitement. And that's also why you should ignore anyone promising exact payment days today. What we can do is look at how these payments would realistically move if they move at all. Because history leaves patterns. And those patterns tell us who's first, who's later, and who needs to double-check their information. Now let's slow this down and talk about what's actually being discussed here, because this is where most people get misled. When you hear the phrase $2,000 dividend checks, your brain jumps to stimulus, pandemic checks, emergency relief, fast money. But that's not exactly how this is being framed. A dividend is not presented as help. It's presented as a distribution. In simple terms, a dividend means money coming back to the public because of economic activity, growth, or participation, not because people are struggling. That framing changes how policymakers talk about it, how agencies prepare for it, and how the public reacts. Calling something a dividend does three things at once. First, it avoids admitting economic weakness. Second, it creates a sense of entitlement instead of dependency. And third, it allows flexibility in who receives it and how it's delivered. That third point is critical. This is not a Social Security bonus. It's not an SSI increase. It's not an SSDI adjustment. But Social Security systems may still be used to deliver the money if it ever moves forward. That's because the government already has verified information on millions of Americans. Now let's talk about timing. If this were to move forward, it would not be instant. It would not be overnight. And it would not be one single wave. There would be phases: speed first, cleanup second, exceptions last. That's how large-scale payments always work. Now, what about people who don't file taxes? In past rollouts, non-filers experienced the most confusion and delays, not because they weren't eligible, but because verification takes longer. Here's the truth. Delay does not mean denial. It means you're in a later phase. Now, let's get to the question everyone cares about. If this moves forward, who gets paid first? The first group is almost always people with active direct deposit on file. That includes many Social Security, SSI, SSDI, and Veterans Benefit recipients. The second group is people who file taxes regularly with direct deposit information on file. The third group includes people without direct deposit or current records. These payments come later, often by paper check or manual review. Returned payments are one of the biggest causes of long delays. Closed accounts, old routing numbers, mismatched names, that's where payments get stuck. At this point, there is no confirmed guidance on offsets for debts. Anyone claiming certainty is guessing. There is also no official sign-up, no payment tracker, no approval messages. Anyone asking for your personal information is not legitimate. Now, let's talk about what you should actually do. Not emotionally, but practically. There is nothing to apply for, nothing to rush into. What matters is making sure your information is accurate. If you receive Social Security, SSI, or SSDI, confirm your bank account, mailing address, and name are correct. If you file taxes, your most recent return is your strongest verification tool. Do not enter your Social Security number into unofficial websites. Do not respond to texts or emails about pending payments. When real updates happen, they appear publicly on official channels. Even if this $2,000 dividend idea never becomes real, the conversation itself matters. It shapes pressure, priorities, and expectations. Your existing benefits are not changing, nothing is being taken away. This is discussion about something additional. Patience is strength. You are not behind, you are not missing out, and you are not uninformed. You're listening, you're learning, and that puts you ahead of the panic. Understanding the process is how you protect your peace.